Hi everybody, this is Rose of Sharon, and I'm back again with another book review. I just read John Bellaris's The Letter, the Witch, and the Ring, which is the second book in the Lewis Barnavelt series, and this one is more about Rose Rita. And Rose is very, very upset about the fact that Lewis is off gallivanting with Boy Scouts, where she has to go to a camping experience by herself, and she just wants to hang out with Lewis. She loves Lewis. It's obvious. First movie, The House of the Clock on Its Walls, establishes their ship, which I sail proudly. Anyway, it features Florence and Rita, and Florence encounters a letter that was left behind by her cousin Oli, and apparently there is a ring involved with this, and Florence thinks, well, it's just a legend, there is no such thing, it's just a fairy tale. But she comes across an old woman named Gertie, and Gertie is a real gem of a human being. Oh, she's a piece of work. But what's interesting about this is, of course, there's a demon involved, which leads you to believe that maybe the demon in the first film was based upon the demon in the second book. So there's that. I learned that as I read. But the ring itself is actually based upon a myth dealing with one of my favorite people, which would be King Solomon. And apparently, according to the legend, this ring granted Solomon with the ability to use telekinesis, transport through walls. He could take upon the shape of a black dog, and more often than not, he would morph into a black dog so he could spy on his enemies. I thought, oh, interesting. It was fascinating stuff. I wonder if that is an actual true legend in Jewish folklore, because honestly, I'm not for certain. I haven't read the Kabbalah yet, so I need to read the Kabbalah. Needless to say, Gertie is the one who has the ring, and she had actually filched it from Olney, and she waited until Olney died, which proves how underhanded she is. But of course, Bellaris's books deal with the constant theme of deceptiveness, and the fact that deceptiveness is never the right way to actually solve a situation, because Rose actually, when she's searching for Florence, because Florence gets lost in the woods as she and Rose are out on their own, having a grand old time, just going out on an adventure and camping alone in the woods, just those two girls. Well, she gets lost, and of course, she doesn't drive, which is very interesting. She is unable to do so. I don't think she ever learned. I think the book actually explains that Florence never really learned to drive, so Rita has to take the stick and punch it, and I thought that was so funny. I thought, how old is Rita now? She shouldn't be driving, but it was a rather hysterical part of the book. It's very short, and it deals with a lot of the consequences of the unknown, and, well, actually I should say necromancy and not touching necromancy, and what happens when you get involved with necromancy. And yeah, it's a cautionary tale and very intriguing, and I'm just so curious about Solomon now, and I'm wondering if he really did have a ring that gave him ability. But there's so much to be said about that, because of course you know about the Philosopher's Stone, and the Philosopher's Stone wasn't precisely that. It wasn't even a stone. That was just a metaphor for anything, and let your mind wander. But most of the scholars say it was a person. But Solomon, according to Old Testament, I didn't see any reference of a ring. Of course, as I aforementioned, I've never read the Kabbalah, so I don't know if this is true or not. Of course, the whole mythology of a ring could just be hearsay, just an oral tradition passed from father to son, and etc. But Solomon was questioned by God what he wanted, and of course Solomon asked wisdom. He did not ask for wisdom, he asked wisdom from God. And God said, since you have asked for this thing, I will give you all the riches that you could ever want, and wisdom. I thought, ooh, nice, good job, Solomon. But that's why I always pray wisdom myself, because if you go back into Genesis, you learn that wisdom was with God in the beginning, and I've always loved that. She is mentioned in Proverbs probably more often than any other aspect or attribute or character trait. But anyway, I'm getting off on different topics that all interrelate. But just like in the first book, Florence does not have her wand, so she is powerless. And she gets herself out of the situation. Actually, she gets Rose out of a really bad situation with the ring, with the demon. That part was rather frightening, but I really don't have much else to say. Until next time, live long and prosper. Ciao, tutti.